terrible day in Marrakesh. Ciao, welcome. We are 9,000 people, part of this community, this YouTube channel. So a few days ago, I decided to do an Ask Me Anything video, a Q&A video, and I post some information on Facebook, Instagram, and here on YouTube. I received several questions. I will group them because some of them are very similar. I realized that many of you don't fully know who I am, and when I started the trip, the genesis of the trip. So we will get into that. How I financed this trip. There are bits and pieces, a bit of everything. For Italian and Spanish listeners, there will be subtitles. Se ascoltate in italiano, ci sono sottotitoli a tutte le risposte. Si hablas español, están subtitulados en español. So let's get into it. I think first I will answer this question. What is your professional background? In other words, what did you do for a living prior to departure to Alaska? Greetings from Marcel from Amsterdam, YouTube subscriber. Ciao, raccontaci in generale chi sei, la tua vita e perché questo lungo viaggio. Mirko Italian. He asked me, who are you? Tell us about your life and why did you decide to do this long journey? Sally Carman, she's a warm shower host in New Zealand. What motivated you to begin your epic cycle around the world? And Hullemano, I will butcher all the nickname and names. Why did you start this journey? To answer briefly, the people who don't know me, I'm Davide Travelli. I'm Italian. I grew up in Italy, in Bergamo, very close to Milan, in northern Italy. When I was 19, I moved to Ireland, and I was a resident in Ireland till basically 2015, August 2015, when I decided, fuck it, I'm gonna cross the Americas by bike. And that was the original project, and that's why you hear Alaska to Patagonia, and my blog is alaskatopatagonia.com, but I haven't written anything in a long time, because that was the original project, was just to cross the Americas from Alaska to Patagonia by bike. And why did I decide to do that? Because for me, the Americas were always the location of my dreams. Since I was a little kid, watching spaghetti western, that they were taped in Spain, but they were based in North America. So Sergio Leone, Clint Eastwood, comics, Italian comics, that they were based in the far west, or with the trappers, reading Jack London. And then growing up, the Lost Generation, the Beat Generation writers, Jack Kerouac, Ginsberg. And then I discovered also the writers of South America, like Garcia Marquez or Isabel Allende. And so for me, the Americas were always the location of my dream, and I always had a plan to cross the Americas with a 4x4 with a few friends. At some point with one of my Venezuelan friends that lives in Italy, we had half a plan to do it by motorbike. And then, but there was always an excuse, or we didn't have money, or he had a girlfriend, or a new job, or this and that. So we always postponed it. And once I was at his house, at Dino's house, and on the beach. They have a house on the beach, and I always spend a few months in the summer there. And that year on the beach, I brought a few books that they were all about the bike. The one book was about building this English guy that built his dream bike. So he was traveling to Italy or to the US to buy this component and that component, and to meet this artisan wheel builder. And then there was a couple of books, bike traveling books. And the first book was Rob Lilwall, Cycling Home from Siberia. And I read the first chapter, and I was like, fuck, you can travel the world by bike. So I told my friend Dino, I was like, Dino, next year we go to Alaska next summer, and we cross the Americas, and we do the Pan American Highway, the Panamericana by bike. And he was like, no. Next year we do the Camino de Santiago with the mountain bike, and then if we like it, the following year we go to Alaska. And I was like, fuck it, no, I don't need training wheels. I know I want to do it. Next year I will be in Alaska. If you want to come, you come. Otherwise I'll go alone. and that's how I started my journey. The following year, I was in Alaska a bit later than expected because it was almost winter already there. Dino joined me for a couple of weeks in Central America. We did from Managua, Nicaragua to San Jose, Costa Rica together. And yeah, so that's how the trip started. And what I did for a living before this, when I arrived in Ireland, I worked in IT for a few multinational American companies. The last corporation I worked for, it's a big consulting company called Accenture. And after that, I started a few businesses doing consulting with some other people. And at the end, basically, I end up consulting in working a lot with Italian companies, helping them to develop business with Northern Europe. It was mostly sales and marketing in different industries, from real estate, interiors, farming. I work a little bit in all sorts of industries. The next set of questions is about the plans, what I'm gonna do after this. So there is Louis Blake that is currently crossing Africa. What are your plans from here? Where are you going next? And then Nicolino Netti, che percorso pensi di fare in Asia? So in Italian he wrote, what kind of journey are you thinking to do in Asia? So basically now I'm in Morocco. I crossed the Americas, I crossed East Africa, I crossed Africa already from Cape Town to Cairo in Egypt, and then from Turkey I did the Balkans, I went in Italy, I arrived, the pandemic arrived, I was stuck there for a long while, and then I resumed my journey and I went north, I went to Europe northmost point, North Cap, and then down, and I was in southern Spain, and then I was looking at the Rif Mountains here in Morocco, and I was like, I should go there. And I waited a couple of months, and when it was winter and I was in Almeria, I saw that there was a ferry to Melilla and Nador in Morocco, so I took the ferry and doing a big loop in Morocco. I got really sick. I was 3 weeks kaput. I felt I was gonna die. But now I'm well. I'm staying a little bit in Marrakesh, and from here I will go north, and in a few weeks of cycling, if I don't stop here and there, maybe 3 weeks, I should be back in Melilla and take the ferry across to Spain. So I will do another few routes in Andalusia because I love it, and there are a few places I want to check out, and then I will start heading north, and I will go towards southern Spain, and I think I will cross Italy, take the ferry to Albania or Greece, and head towards Georgia, get in Iran, and ideally I would like to do a big loop in the Middle East and do Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi, Oman, back in Iran, follow the Silk Route into Asia. I don't have specific about my route in Asia, but there are a few countries that I really look forward to spend some time. One, for example, is Kyrgyzstan. But yeah, that's the rough idea. Then it will depend on the visas. Talking about visa, the next question is from Zero Mike. It's in Spanish. ¿Cómo te dejan entrar a un nuevo país si no puedes demostrar la fecha de salida? How do they let you enter a new country if you cannot tell them when you leave the country? So he's talking about the fact that sometimes when you fly into when you apply for visa in certain countries, you need to give them a proof that you're leaving on a certain date. So usually when you buy a plane ticket, you can show them the ticket because you will arrive a certain date and you will leave that date, and they will grant the visa. When you travel by bike, this thing doesn't happen because you enter by land, so you don't have a proof of leaving. So most of the country, they don't have this requirement. I don't think I crossed 58 countries so far, and I don't think any of those had this requirement. If there is a country that has this requirement where you fill in the application form, you can just tell them I'm traveling by bike, and so I don't have a ticket of a ticket that say the day that I leave, and they will understand. So sometimes you need to upload the picture of your flight ticket, and you can just write a piece of paper that you're traveling by bike and take a pictures and upload that one. Otherwise, if you don't have you don't want to have any of these problems, you can buy a fake flight ticket, and it's not really fake, it's a real flight ticket that you can cancel within 24 or 48 hours. So there are some websites that they offer this service, and if you Google onward ticket, it will come up with a bunch of websites that they offer this service. Though you will pay a fee, and it's usually maybe 10 euro, and they will book a real plane ticket for you. They will send you the receipt, and they will cancel it within, I can't remember if it's 24 or 48 hours. Next, we have the monk of the project 3 Mules. When are you going to try traveling with mules? It's complicated because the mules are expensive, and it would be very difficult to cross borders with the mules, but it's something that I'm willing to try. I also discussed it with my friend Nomad Trail Payman. He would like to do Portugal with mules or donkeys. So it's something that at some point I would like to try to either with donkeys or with mules. I would love to try. And you can follow the journey. It's the endless journey of this man and his mules in the US. And his project is 3 Mules, number 3 Mules. And you can find him on Instagram and Facebook. And it's very inspiring. He's an older gentleman, and he's been traveling in the US like that as a nomad for over 35 years, I think, and he has lots of problems with the police. So he has infinite patience, I think, because I would drive me insane. He gets arrested every so often, so it's really inspiring to follow his journey. Next, we have Jigs on the Road. When you were in Andalusia, did you have to store your food supplies far from the tent? Or maybe there is no need for that? No, definitely there is no need for that in Europe, because there is no wildlife at all in Europe. Nothing really dangerous, so you can store the food very close to the tent. I know some people that they like to store the food inside the tent. I avoid that. I think it's a very silly idea to store food bags inside your tent, even because in some places there are some sort of very big ants or termites or whatever they are, that they can chew through the floor of your tent if they smell some food. So it's a bad idea. You know, it's just better to leave the bags with the food outside. Next up, we have Up Onto Moors or Moors. What shall wear cycling? Full kit? It depends. Not really a full kit lately, but I do wear padded cycling shorts, because they help me, and especially with the saddle that I have now, I think it's advisable to wear padded shorts. I always wear them, even when I was cycling and when I was traveling with a Brook saddle. And so usually I have that. I have Shimano Gore-Tex touring boots, and and on top of the padded shorts, I usually wear some sort of either mountain bike shorts or football, like as in soccer football shorts. And then lately, the last year or two, I'm wearing those Bike Cafe shirts that I really like. Unfortunately, they are synthetic, so after 5 minutes they smell. Be nice if they were merino, but it is what it is. Next, Early Grey 007. How often do you have to change your inner tube? Never, because for the last 48,000 kilometers I've been using a tubeless setup. I use tubes in the Americas. I was using a different. I was using a different bike. I had a classic Surly disc trackers, and I was using Schwalbe Marathon Plus Tour or Marathon Plus MTB tires, and they require high pressure, and they had inner tubes. I'm trying to remember how often did I change them. Not that often, because especially in Latin America, you find very crappy tubes that they were from Kenda, if I'm not mistaken, and they always break. They break where there is the valve. So I was always using either Michelin or Schwalbe, and I would get them when I was getting some resupplies from Europe. If I was getting some new gear or someone was flying in and take me something, maybe I would get like a couple of new tubes. But so I had the two tubes inside the two wheels, and then I had two spare ones that I was carrying all the time. But usually you replace them when they either they break the valve or something, or you had too many punctures and they are patched up everywhere. But you can easily use them until there are like 10, 15 patches, I guess. Next up is Blandine, warm shower hose from France. How do you choose the spot for your tent when you camp in nature? What is important for a good spot? It's also a sixth sense. Sometimes I say, there yes, there no. I just feel it now. After so many hundreds and hundreds, I'd say thousands of wild camps. A thing that I look for, that is a dry place. So avoiding being next to a river, body of waters, lake, seaside also. I mean, I did the coast of Portugal, and it was so humid this summer. Sometimes you have to, but if you can avoid a body of water. It should be relatively flat, because you sleep, you're not on an incline. So it has to be flat, and a place that it's either clean, or you can clean up very well from debris like thorns, anything that has like that is pointy. So even pointy rocks, rocks in general. So in order not to puncture through the floor of the tent, and also important because I have an inflatable sleeping pad, that I don't get a flat sleeping pad. It would be the worst. It should be in a place where nobody could see me, so a bit hidden, and also that I'm not seen going into the spot. Very important. Yeah, so those are the main ingredients of a good spot to camp: dry, flat, and clean. Next we have Pete Gostlow, also long distance bike travels. He crossed Africa, a lot of Africa. How many Tinder dates until now? Pete, not as many as you, as I'm told you had many. Tinder or the dating apps are a good way to meet local people, and I met loads of incredible women that they've been part of this journey, and sometimes I spent a few days or a few weeks or a few months with them, and it's great. It's very difficult to explain, because I know people from home, they might judge it in a way, but there are beautiful experiences, and it works both ways, because also for the people I dated, they were very good experiences, and I'm still in touch with most of these people. Great friendship that they flourish because of the dating app. So it's a really good experience, and it's really an important part of my journey as well. And yeah, it's a bit strange, because we both know that it's not gonna be forever, but it's something that sparks and also ends the physical presence, the proximity is gonna end relatively soon. As I said, it could be a few days, it could be a few weeks or a month. But yeah, so you already know, I know already, and they know already because I obviously tell them that I'm cycling through. And yeah, so basically you have the best part of a relationship, and it's beautiful. Next set of questions from N. Foxford. Hi, how do you afford this traveling? And from Vale Stewart in Italian. Te lo avranno chiesto 1000 volte, quindi perdonami, ma di cosa vivi? It's the same question. So when I did Americas, I had my savings, but I was very unlucky. In North America, I had many problems with bears, grizzly bears, black bears that walked on my tent, ripped my panniers. I had an accident in Vancouver. The guy gave me his ID and I took a picture, phone number, and then he disappeared. He didn't compensate me for the damages. Yeah, so in North America, I definitely spent more money than I forecasted. And when I was getting to Colombia, I didn't know if I had enough money to get to Patagonia. But I met at a warm shower host in Santa Marta in Colombia. I met two couples, a couple from Argentina and one guy, a Spanish and Mexican couple. And they were traveling for a long time with no money. And I met many people then in South America that they travel with no money, and I was like, fuck it, if they can do it, I should be able to do it too. And those two couples, I had two interviews that are on my YouTube channel. So if you wanna travel and you don't have the money, you can go and watch these interviews, and they explain the creative part of how to do it. They were doing craft, Macri craft. They were recycling used bike tires and making belts and collars for dogs and things like that. But I always worked in an office. I didn't have the manuality to do anything, so I told them, like, I always work in an office. I don't know how to do anything. And they were like, you can print out postcards. So I started to print out postcards with my picture that I was taking with my camera, and I was selling them in the squares in Colombia. And it was working. Yeah, I wasn't making much money, but it was enough to travel. And then I exchanged these postcards in bakeries or fruit stores or in cheap restaurants for a menu. Yeah, so there are many things you can do to travel. You don't need a lot of money. Sorry, there is no proper lights in this room, but I realized editing the video that I didn't really answer well the question, and I didn't really explain what happened after South America. So the original project was to cross the Americas, Alaska to Patagonia. In Colombia, I started to learn that I could make some money on the road, selling postcards, making handmade postcards and put them on social media, things like that. And so I decided I wanted to continue beyond Patagonia. I really wanted to cycle all the continents, and that's why when I got to Patagonia, I sold my bike to pay for flight tickets to Cape Town, and then the good friends of Bike Cafe, where I bought the first bike, I contacted them to ask them if they could put me in contact with a bike brand for sponsorship, and they told me, don't worry, we can give you a bike for free. And they gave me Felicity, my Genesis Longitude, and so that I continue my journey from Cape Town towards Cairo. First of all, you have to be very humble when you travel. You don't have to buy water, but you can use tap water in every country, even in Africa. And you can filter, or you can use your SteriPen. You don't have to go to hotels or campsites. You can do wild camping, and it's the same as being on a campsite. I don't do hotels unless it's really necessary, because maybe I got sick, like it happened here in Morocco. In Europe, there are lots of warm shower hosts, so or couchsurfing hosts, so you should be able to find someone that can host you here and there. So it's not necessary to go to an hotel. In 2 years of traveling in Europe, I think I went to an albergue once, so I was like less than 15 euro, I think. But on the Camino de Santiago, because it was a very shitty day, I got stolen my camera. I was soaked wet. I mean, it was terrible. But usually I don't need to do this expend. Then I don't go to parties. I don't go to hostels and go out drinking. Yeah, I don't need to taste the fancy food and restaurants and craft beer everywhere. So that's that, and then you can be very resourceful. You can sell art, you can sell music, you can paint murales, you can write books, you can sell photographs, videography, you can write articles, you can monetize a blog if you're very good, you can monetize a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel has not many views, but there are bike travelers that has big YouTube channels and they can monetize. My revenue from YouTube for the last year, it's an average of 40 to 50 euro per month. Yeah, those are the things that you can do. I also started to do in Ecuador watercolors, handmade postcards, and I would put them on social media and people would send a donation. So if you really want to know how I found this trip, I have some very good and nice postcards from Morocco, and you could send me a donation and you'll see exactly how it works. Usually I don't put a price on the postcards. Usually people send a donation between 10 and 20 euro, but there are some people that send more, and there are some people that they tell me they have less and I can still send them the postcard. So it's not a problem. The average is usually quite well, and yeah, there is a little expense because you have to put the stamp and pray that the people will receive. Because for example, when I was in Ushuaia in Patagonia, I sent 130 postcards and the stamp cost me $4, $4 US, and no one received the postcard. I think someone at the post office took the stamp, and yeah. But yeah, I hope I gave you some idea of how you can found and finance your journey. This is how I finance mine. So there are some people that see these videos on YouTube and send me donation. There are some people buying the postcards. So I have so many. So if any of you guys now want to buy a postcard, just send me a donation, the address through PayPal, and you will receive a nice postcard from Morocco. Okay, I forgot one question from someone that follows me very closely and watch all the videos, so I really want to answer. How to manage to stay hydrated and not to suffer from energy insufficient? Of course, you have to eat and drink sufficient, but I don't think so. But do you try to eat every 2 hours, for example, or do you just go with the flow and feeding? Sounds a bit silly question, but it is, because I'm suffering a lot in the summer because I sweat a lot. Sometimes I'm slightly dehydrated if I do have to manage the water. For example, if I'm in the desert, I do drink much less than I would like to. And during the day is never a big problem. I can go with very little water if I need to. But it's a problem during the night, because normally even if I have loads of water, I don't drink enough during the day, but when I stop at night, when I'm eating or after eating, when I'm pitching my tent and I go to bed, I can drink like a couple of liters straight. So at night, easily, if I have a lot of water and I was a little dehydrated during the day, I can drink. I can use up between food and drinking 3 liters, 3 liters of water. Yeah, but 3 liters. If I'm slightly dehydrated, yes. For eating, there's one thing you can do is oatmeal release energy very slowly. So if you like oatmeal, and either you can have some oatmeal and making some porridge at breakfast. If I eat oatmeal at breakfast with a bit of raisins or some chocolate or something like that, if I eat a good amount, like this much in my pot, with some water. I can go basically to lunch without needed to eat anything. But otherwise, if I eat something else at breakfast, I need to have a snack. And yeah, usually I eat when I feel hungry. I usually have snacks with me, either some cookies. In every country, I find something that is quite cheap that I can bring with me. Here in Morocco, there are some dates filled kind of biscuits. It's a bar. It's 1 dirham for each, and so it's quite cheap. And when I find those, I buy 20, 30, and it's really good. I can feed off those basically for most of the day. When it comes to lunch, I usually try to find either a shop and buy some bread and something, or like even in cheap countries like Morocco, I could get an omelette or something like that in a restaurant. It's quite cheap. If I'm in Europe, I try to go to a supermarket and buy some cheap bread and cheese, or some yogurt, things like that. Like in Spain, I would also get either a liter of yogurt or a liter of gazpacho and some bread, and that's basically my lunch. And then at night, usually I can cook myself, or I can do some bread and cheese. It really depends, or maybe some beans or things like that. But if I cook, I usually cook pasta. Yeah, I usually cook pasta if I get really fancy, because I was able to buy it somewhere cheap with an offer, or someone gave me quinoa. But it's usually pasta, tortellini, things like that. And I forgot, there is an old saying in cycling that sort of apply to bike traveling as well, that you drink before you feel thirsty, you eat before you feel hungry, and you cover yourself before you feel cold. That's also something to keep in mind. Okay, I think last question. I think I got them all. Occasional bikepacker, so it's Jacob Ashton, also long distance bike traveler. I'm not sure if he cycled through South America, but he definitely crossed Africa, East Africa, Europe, and I think Central Asia. And his question is, what are your top 3 favorite countries to cycle in? What is your least favorite country, and why? Well, the least favorite country, I think it's Austria, because the people are not friendly at all. They're not welcoming at all. And I think I'm not alone, because I also read books of other bike travelers, and they recalled similar experiences in Austria. And then, yeah, the infamous country that some people say it's the worst, but for me it was not the worst. It's Ethiopia. It's a beautiful country, lots of nice people, but there is a good chunk of people that are a bit unfriendly, and the kids throw you lots of rocks, and they are really big and they can hurt. Lots of people that are drunk, even like during the day, so they might swing at you or try to push you off the bike. There are people trying to put sticks into your wheels. It's true. So it requires lots of energy, but it's a beautiful country, and I had like I enjoyed the country for the most part till the last I would say the last week. Then it became a little bit too much. So yeah, on the negative side, I would say that, and also the police in Egypt can be a bit much. And my favorite countries are anything else. I really enjoyed Latin America. It taught me how to travel, how to survive even if I don't have money. So for me, it was very formative, very important. Mexico is very easy. It's very, very easy. If someone wants to have an easy time traveling, Mexico is such an easy country to travel to. It's quite cheap as well. Colombia is the Mexico of South America. Peru was an incredible experience, but in South America I had a nice time. Nature-wise, I think if you really like nature, I think there is nothing else like the southern part of Bolivia, the northern Chile, and the northern Argentina is like a different planet. But also Africa is really nice. I like the desert. Namibia was really nice. The hospitality in Sudan is something else. Very close to Europe. If you don't want to go too far, I think you have two countries that are incredible experiences because the culture is radically different from Europe, but they're still very close and they're quite cheap and the people are so nice. And it's Morocco. Incredible riding here in Morocco. Incredible riding, especially the eastern side of the country was something else, and now I'm on this other side of the Atlas, so we'll see. And also Turkey. Also Turkey is something else. Hospitality. So yeah, generally Muslim country you treated very well. So like for Europeans, if you wanna do, I would really recommend either Turkey or Morocco. All right, I think it was longer than I planned, but I hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed answering your questions, and hopefully you enjoyed listening my answers. Yeah, if you haven't, subscribe to this channel and let's make this community grow. I was thinking also to make a Facebook group for our little community. And but if someone has other ideas, someone suggested also a Discord. If you're willing to use Discord, it would be easier there to also have like 3 separate sections with 3 different languages, so English, Spanish, and Italian, and people could switch from one to the other very easily. So let me know if you want me to create a Discord for our community to hang out, to exchange knowledge, routes, informations about bike touring. Let me know. I will be glad to set it up. If you want to have a beautiful postcard, I would say, look, this guy with the bike from Morocco, let me know in the next few days. It'd be nice. And yeah, I send them in exchange of a donation, whatever you feel is appropriate. And other than that, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for your generosity and for supporting me and my dream to cycle around the world. Everybody is very generous, either watching these videos and buying the postcards or hosting me or just send me encouraging messages. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on Sunday. Also, I am thinking to switch day of publishing to Saturday, so let me know about that as well. And yeah, thank you so much. Ciao.